I do know that the U.S. government has knowledge of the Sasquatch. I ended up becoming an intelligence officer in the United States Army, and I worked specifically with the Second Ranger. I do know for a fact that the Second Ranger had, on many occasions, had to take out a few Sasquatch just for public safety. Sometimes people aren't paying attention to what the forest is telling them. I personally didn't go out in the field with them, but I saw the after-action review reports. And I do know, just from the ones that I saw, there were 4 taken, and they were also taken to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base for the autopsy. I don't think it's really a national security thing. I think it's more of a financial thing. I think they're worried about the financial impact of these things could have to small communities around the country.
It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life and most frightening thing I've ever experienced in my life, all in one bundle. I can't seem to keep my eyes out of the trees when I'm here, you know. I just want to see it again so bad I can't handle it. Trying to tell the story and put it in perspective for someone to understand is really hard to do. It's just something that I wish everyone that wanted to see Bigfoot or was curious could see it for themselves.
That's why I think opening up our story that we've had would be able to express that, you know, what people may think that's not something that's real might be able to be like, okay, I can actually ease my mind a little bit and be like, that what I saw was real.
The way it pulled its little one, its young behind it with its arm,
in a protective
fashion was just, it was crazy. My first thing I thought was like, this thing's protecting something, and it's not, it's just, it was, I mean, I can't even put it in words. It was so unreal.
There's nothing out there that I have experienced out in the wilderness that can move and have the parental effects that they, you know, had towards its own.
Protecting its young like a human, like I would, like pull my daughter behind me and it's in a bad situation, you know.
It was like a dark cinnamon.
Yeah, it was definitely, it was not black. It was
No.
not what I've heard people, it was not what you hear every day from people. Like, this thing was cinnamon colored. It had every feature that like you would see like if you went to a zoo and saw a gorilla.
The arm length was basically double of what our arm length was.
Yeah, it was to its knees. Below its
Easily,
knees almost.
easily. Once they seen us, and once we kind of locked eyes for that, what seemed to be an eternity, they moved off the logs and they kind of hid along the tree line there.
You could see through the trees. You could see that thing moving, but once it got behind the trees, there was nothing. It was like it just disappeared in thin air.
It almost was in the feeling that they wanted us to see it.
Yeah.
Like, I think that if we did have the equipment, the cameras, anything like that,
We wouldn't have seen it.
Not at all. We wouldn't
I
have,
think if we would have had our cameras rolling, we wouldn't have seen it.
they would have never allowed us to.
Chad and Austin were going to come out here and film a survival YouTube video, and it was going to be like a 24-hour overnight thing, and they didn't want me to come pick them up. They wanted to do it all on their own. And when they went to go call me at midnight, first I was upset, and I said, no, I'm not going to come and pick you guys up, and hung up. They called back, and when I met them down at the bottom of the road, I could just see it in Chad's eyes. And in the 12 years we've been together, I've never seen him not scared. I definitely am a strong believer in Bigfoot now, and it's something that I know Chad and Austin will never forget, as well as myself.
There are many aspects to what you would consider, quote, a Sasquatch experience. One of them is unbelievable fear. When you talk to somebody who's had an experience, most often they're going to tell you they have this fear that is just, they can't even describe it. Another is out of context emotions. We don't have a mental construct for these kinds of beings because we're not taught this. So we're not open to it. We're only told what exists and what does not exist. So our belief system is such a way that if something comes in to our context and leaves, then we don't have a mental construct for it. A lot of people cannot handle that psychologically, mentally, or emotionally because it challenges everything that they've been taught.
Making eye contact with something that doesn't exist, you just don't know what to think. I mean, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to go talk to because, I don't want to be the crazy one.
I talk to grown men who will stand there and cry over what they've seen. They won't go back in the woods to hunt. There was one gentleman who was a foreman for a construction crew, and he wouldn't go back to work for a few days because of what he saw. And his wife said he never missed a day of work in his life before that. He knows what black bears look like. He knows what's in the forest, and he says he saw a Bigfoot and he saw it up close.
I start to feel like betrayal, I guess I would say, because I start to think about the fact that I'm a trained professional, a trained observer. I just happen to see something that's not supposed to be real, and my whole world is in disarray at this moment, because I'm driving away from this thing, having to deal with a realization of something that isn't supposed to be real, that I just happen to have an encounter with real as day. How come I just had to see this thing? And I'm never told about it before, only as a fairy tale. I never believed in them or anything like that.
My name is Dr. Michael Adams, and I'm a clinical psychologist. I trained conservatively at the University of Miami and Yale University School of Medicine. I served in the Army Reserve in the Medical Corps, and finally, primarily my private practice, and to this date, probably over 90,000 direct clinical patient hours. We all have psychological defenses. They allow us to go through the world and navigate our experiences, right? So everybody has them. Anybody who has normal interactions in the world has to have psychological defenses. They're neither good or bad, they just are. So when we talk about rationalization, that's where we take an event that's happened in our life and we just rationalize it. For example, we see something strange out in the woods and we go, no, it can't be that. It must be this. And they discard their original impression and rationalize it. I couldn't have seen what I just saw, right? So there's rationalization, and then there's suppression and repression. Suppression is a conscious act where I just saw something, I experienced something, but it's disturbing to me. So I am not going to talk to other people about it, and I'm not going to even maybe admit it much to myself. I don't want to relive what I just experienced. Repression, on the other hand, is an unconscious process where we push it so deeply down where we're not aware of it. We don't even think about it. So you may have a subset of people out there who've experienced Bigfoot, Sasquatch, if you will, who really don't remember the experience in some cases, or remember it and push it down. So there could be a subset of people out there, again, who have seen this, but you would never know about it because their defenses kicked in and protected them.
If someone's seen Bigfoot and they want to recall more information, absolutely, hypnosis gives us that tool. A lot of things happen when we have a traumatic experience or we have an emotional experience. Our mind is recording all of this stuff, and it happens rapidly. So if we can slow it down using hypnosis, we can say, okay, what happened? Freeze frame it, zoom in. We can do all those things. The unconscious mind can really do all those things. So yes, we can get a lot more details. And if it's traumatic or emotional, there's a bunch of information. We have different minds that have different functions. There's the conscious mind. It's what we call volatile. It's the one that says, oh, I've got an appointment, I need to be there. Or is this something I should be watching or doing? It's that questioning part of us. It's also the part that says, let's go have fun. 95% of your perceptions and your behaviors are controlled by your unconscious mind. So everything that's going on, every moment of the day, your unconscious mind is recording. And it is literally filing it. When we go to sleep, the stuff that has value gets shuffled to long-term memory. If it had an emotional component to it or a traumatic component to it, it gets shuffled deliberately into long-term because we need to know that it has value. If that experience was traumatic, created fear, we need to know about it so that if it happens again, we're prepared.
Oh, there it goes.
So if we see an event that is possibly even traumatic, but we see a profound event, what we're likely to do is take a still frame and a moving shot of that experience, and we're going to archive that in our brains. And it gets seared in the sense that it is permanent. It's a permanent image because it's so profound for us and it's so out of the box for us. So we put it in our minds, we park it there, and we will keep that seared, if you will, in our memories for the rest of our lives.
I really obsessed on it for like 30 days, 30 or a few months almost. I was like looking for answers, you know what I mean? And finally I just, with my kids, I just got distracted in life and my wife and stuff. It just kind of slipped away, and I kind of just, anytime we'd go out for a trip in the mountains or down fishing by the river, it would pop right back up in my mind. I would look down the river or something like this, and I'd just like see a flashback of, almost like picturing something standing down there. It could really put somebody in a bad state of mind if they were to experience what I experienced. It can be very traumatizing.
Like Chad said, me and him talk to each other when we get into those moments, like it.
Yeah, 11, 12 o'clock at night,
It don't matter what time it is.
Phone,
Because it almost made you feel like you were gonna go insane. It'll never leave you. You will always have that with you. You will always remember that moment.
I will say that a good percentage of them, there's a level of underlying fear because they don't know what this is. It's making noise, it's moving past them, or they see it and it's moving away. It's not something that our unconscious mind or our conscious mind is really set to register. So they can start out a bit fearful. They can start out with a little bit of hesitation. I've had people go from that to awe, that, oh my gosh, this is an incredible creature. That it's amazing. I had one client talk about how muscular it was and how broad its shoulders were and how it's like just was in awe of this incredibly majestic creature. I had another client that I worked with who actually began to cry. And I said, what's happening now? And his response was so beautiful. He says, I realize that I will never see these again. That was powerful.